Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Hope everybody had a very nice Mother's Day weekend. I did, except for the Celtics loss, what to me was a heartbreaker, Sap. A game that so many things, if it just went a little bit better for the Celtics, they would have won and put themselves in really good position for their game tonight. But they did not. They are down 2-1, and basically every game now is like a do or die, most important game in years for the Celtics situation. So, as a Celtics fan, first and foremost, obviously that's the series I'm paying the most attention to. We've gotten a lot of exciting series though in the NBA, but we'll start with the Celtics. Sap, what's your reaction to the green team's loss on Saturday?
It was kind of a maddening game because going into the fourth quarter, I'm like, they have no business winning this game. They were thoroughly outplayed, especially in the third quarter. They did have a 4-point lead at the half, but once again, the Celtics came out flat in the third quarter. Milwaukee was more engaged. They built a lead, and going into the fourth quarter, it felt like it was just going to be the final 12 minutes of garbage time. But the Celtics just kept creeping back into it. And I remember with 4 or 5 minutes left, I'm sitting there watching the game with my nephew, and we're like, they have a chance to win this game because Milwaukee's kind of let them back in. In fact, the Celtics took a 1-point lead with possession of the ball with a minute left. And I know they went for a couple of threes. If you hit one of those threes, you go up 4 points, 2 possessions, and you really put Milwaukee in a tough spot. Could have got better shots in those situations. And then Giannis does what he does, makes a big basket. Holiday was also very big down the stretch as well for Milwaukee. They were really the only 2 players that were taking shots. Heck, they took 60 field goals attempts between them, which is pretty amazing in this modern NBA where you kind of spread the ball out a little bit. But a tough loss, one which felt like it was going to be a blowout or a comfortable win from Milwaukee. Give the Celtics credit for getting back into it, but they've got to solve what's wrong with them in the third quarter, because that happened even in game 2. Fortunately for them, they were up 25 at the half in that game. They let Milwaukee get back a little bit, but the Celtics were mostly in control of that game as well. And look, when Milwaukee's best player goes out and scores 42 points and your best player goes out and scores 10, you're generally going to lose. And the problem with Jason Tatum on Saturday, he wasn't very good on the defensive end. He scored 10 points on 4 of 19, shooting from the floor, 0 of 6 from 3. He had 1 rebound and 3 assists. A great player has to find a way to contribute if he's not scoring. And Tatum's been able to do that. He did that against Brooklyn. Let's not forget, Tatum's not been lights out in this postseason. He's put up good raw numbers in terms of scoring, but he's only shooting 42% from the floor. So he hasn't been really an efficient player in the postseason. He's only averaging 4 rebounds a game so far in the postseason. He should do better than that. I mean, he's 6'9", and he's a guy who averaged 8 rebounds a game during the regular season. So if you're not going to score, you have to go out and be engaged. And me being the old guy on the network, Jet, I remember 41 years ago, so I'm now starting to sound a little bit like Chris Mad Dog Russo, although...
Yeah, that's why, going way back.
Going way back, 1981. I was still a senior in high school, believe it or not, and you weren't even around yet. But in the 1981 finals, the Celtics were playing the Houston Rockets, and in games 3 and 4 in Houston, Larry Bird had back-to-back games where he had 8 points in each game. He was not good putting the ball in the basket. But you know what he did in those 2 games? Hit 25 rebounds total, 17 assists, 7 steals, and 2 blocks. So he wasn't scoring, but he was doing everything else: rebounding, passing, defending, doing all things to contribute. Now, again, Bird was playing with Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Cedric Maxwell, Tiny Archibald, a loaded team. I think the Celtics are really good right now, not quite as good as that Celtics team in 81, but, there's more pressure necessarily on Tatum to produce and score more than 10 points in a given game. But if that's what you're going to do, you have to contribute in other ways, and he just didn't on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things that are frustrating from a Celtics fan perspective in terms of the result. You lose by 2. If Jason Tatum even has a slightly below average game instead of a god-awful game, you win. If Jason Tatum is able to outplay Pat Connaughton, you win. If you don't have a horrible disaster of a third quarter, you win. I know both teams were upset with the officiating. The officiating was really bad. I think both teams have legitimate gripes, especially, at the end of the game that Marcus Smart, they called it on the floor instead of a shooting foul I think it should have been 3 free throws, but
they're not calling that anymore, Jet. I mean, that's kind of changed since the beginning of the year,
yeah,
right?
but
Remember going into the year?
situationally, Sap, he's not going for the swipe there. He's trying to shoot a 3. There's 4 seconds left on the. I don't think he's going for a swipe move there. That's just my opinion, and obviously it's a very biased opinion. I think it was just not a well officiated game.
Officiating has been questionable throughout the playoffs, right? I mean, we watched yesterday as Chris Paul fouled out, right? It seemed like he barely was on the court in game 4 against Dallas. And I think half of those 6 fouls were questionable. Are we there to watch Chris Paul foul out, or are we there to see Chris Paul play? Same thing kind of with the Celtics Bucks. There were a lot of kind of questionable calls, although I'm going to push back a little bit. The Celtics had 34 free throw attempts on Saturday. Milwaukee only had 17. So as much as Celtic fans want to complain about the officiating, the Celtics did go to the free throw line twice as often as Milwaukee. Now, I get the pushback from the Celtics side will be that Giannis gets away with murder. I mean, he takes giant steps and multiple steps going to the basket. He doesn't just have a Euro step. He has a Euro Asia step. I mean, it seems like it covers most of the court. I get that. And he is a bull in a china shop. He lowers his shoulder in. It causes a lot of collisions. He did get called for 4 fouls on Saturday. Maybe he should have been called for more. So I can understand that. But officiating in the postseason is always questionable. It's a real black mark against the NBA. But just look to the fact, again, let's put this back on Jason Tatum. If Jason Tatum outscores Derek White, they win the game, because White had 14 points. Tatum had 10. I mean, you can't outproduce Derek White. That's a bad look for Jason Tatum, who we've talked about being potentially a top 5 player, certainly a top 10 player. Well, he's got to be better than he was on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest factor was, not officiating, not, the other things. It was Jason Tatum playing like crap. That was absolutely the biggest factor as to why they lost. And so, that's frustrating for the Celtics, and also frustrating for the Celtics is you wasted a tremendous game from Al Horford, who I don't know how many of these types of games he has left. He was so good in every aspect. Offensively, defensively, on the boards, he was fantastic. Finished with 22 and 16 and 5 assists and 2 blocks. I mean, really, just an amazing game from Al Horford. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be frustrated for the Celtics, and now you're in a position where you're playing, game 4 tonight in Milwaukee, and you really can't lose this game. You put your backs up against the wall because your star player had a really poor game 3, and that happens. But then now Tatum has to respond with a big game tonight. And I think he's certainly capable of doing that. I don't think Milwaukee did anything particularly creative defensively to shut down Tatum in game 3, but he just was missing everything. I mean, he could not, layups, mid-range, 3-pointers. He couldn't do anything. Wes Matthews, I think, did a really good job defensively on him, but when you're the level of offensive talent than Jason Tatum is, if you're being guarded one-on-one, even by a really good defender, you should be able to overcome that. And he didn't on Saturday.
Was Milwaukee just being physical with him, kind of like the Celtics were with Kevin Durant, which kind of got him out of his game in that first series? So be physical with Jason Tatum, just get him off his spot, get him a little bit backwards rather than forwards. And I also think that because of Brook Lopez and Giannis at the rim, he's a little hesitant to go in there. And that's always one way to get your game going, right? Get the ball, get close to the basket, see it go through. Now you can kind of elevate the rest of your offensive game. If you're not able to hit those layups, now you're strictly shooting from the perimeter. And again, we know that Milwaukee's such an elite defensive team that now that's a challenge for Jason Tatum. We're hearing about his wrist, but everybody at this point in the season, I think, is banged up. And also, I think on the defensive end, you got to get him out of switches on Giannis, because that's not a really favorable position to be in. You want Grant Williams or Horford on Giannis. Those are the 2 best defenders you have in that situation. You want Rob Williams being an off-the-ball defender, and you really don't want Tatum getting locked down with Giannis, because it's punishing, and that takes a lot out of you. So those are some of the adjustments that hopefully the Celtics will make in game 4. And again, is it a must-win? No, generally it's a must-win when you're facing elimination, but this is as close to a must-win as you're going to face without being an elimination game, because if you lose this one, you're going to have to beat the defending world champions 3 times in a row, and you're going to have to win one of those games in Milwaukee, something you would not have done in games 3 and 4. This is pretty much a must-win game for the Celtics, because I don't see them beating Milwaukee 3 straight games, so they're going to even this thing up tonight.
Yeah, and it's I think even more pressure is on, because you look at the totality of what's going on in the playoffs, and we've talked about this all postseason long, Sap, it does seem so wide open. Like if you can just get past Milwaukee, you're going to have a tough opponent in Philadelphia or Miami, but I feel like beating the defending champs will make the Celtics feel like, okay, we are the favorites to win the title right now. We have this, we can do it. And so losing this series, especially with Middleton out, would be just a real blow to the team, I think, and to their confidence. Like it's just the opportunity is there. It's broken well for the Celtics. And the same thing sort of happened in the bubble. They, probably would have lost to the Lakers in the finals, but you never know. And so it's just like the opportunity to, come out of this and be the last team standing is realistic. It's not completely unfathomable like we thought it would have been, in November and December. And so I think that that's a lot of pressure on the Celtics to be like, wow, the opportunity is here. Can we grab it? Can we be this team that comes out of nowhere and wins the title because we've changed everything about ourselves in terms of how we play and our chemistry. And so I think that they look at it and go, this is a must-win game in more ways than one, because they're talking about the rest of their path and potentially winning a championship, not just winning this series.
I've never seen it this wide open, Jet, because, for a decade, LeBron went to 8 straight finals, went to 9 in 10 years. So he was always in the discussion, which would make his team the favorite or the co-favorite. Or in those other years in there where Golden State was going to 5 straight finals and they were just a juggernaut. They did lose to LeBron in 16, and then they lost to Toronto in 19, but that was based on injuries. I think a healthy Golden State beats Toronto in 19. So you had a decade of 2 elite teams getting ready to face each other. Whatever team LeBron was on and the Golden State Warriors dominated the league, with San Antonio kind of sprinkled in there as well. Then the Lakers win in the bubble, and I think they were going to be pretty much unbeatable because LeBron was still the best player in the sport, and Anthony Davis was the best number 2. He was really engaged. Last year, it was wide open because, he came down to Brooklyn and Milwaukee in the second round going to Game 7 overtime. Milwaukee's a champion, respect the hell out of them, but they're not at the level of Golden State or any team LeBron won a championship with. I mean, they were trailing 2-0 in the finals against Phoenix. They were trailing 2-0 against Brooklyn in the second round. They were 2-2 against the Atlanta Hawks of all teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. They weren't a clear-cut champion, but this year it is completely wide open. There's 8 teams left, and I know you could power rank the 8 teams. You have Dallas or Memphis would win the championship. It would be a surprise simply because, Luka doesn't have a ton of help in Dallas, and Ja Morant, who may not even play in Game 4 against Golden State, doesn't necessarily have a lot of help in Memphis. But those are teams that won over 50 games. Just look at the wins totals of these 8 remaining teams, Jet. The Celtics, Milwaukee, and Philly each had 51 wins. Dallas had 52. Miami and Golden State had 53. Memphis had 56, and Phoenix had 64. And as good as Phoenix is, they don't have the same feel of the Golden State teams with Steph, Clay, and Durant, or any of the LeBron teams. They're a 64-win team that I think just was so focused all year long that they were incredible, but I don't look at them as a true 64-win team. This thing is wide open. Hell, Phoenix is 2-2 against Dallas, right? I mean, Miami's 2-2 against Philly, and Embiid's been back the last 2 games, and now you could make a case that maybe Philadelphia is going to pull the upset of the Miami Heat. And with Luka involved, who the hell knows what's going to happen with Dallas and Phoenix? So it's time for the Celtics to step up tonight and even this series, just like Dallas and Philadelphia did on Sunday.
Absolutely. The only team to me that looks completely overmatched is Memphis. And that's because, Morant's been spectacular. Now, we don't know if he's going to play in Game 4 or not, but he's been getting no help at all, no help whatsoever. Doncic, the past 2 games, has finally been getting a little bit of help from Dallas, from his teammates in Dallas. But Golden State just is so deep. They won the one game where Ja went crazy, put up 47 points. It's hard to do that consistently, especially when you have, multiple guys on Golden State scoring in the 20s, and then you only have one guy scoring above 16 for Memphis. You can't beat a good team that way. Memphis just isn't deep enough. They don't have enough co-stars for Ja Morant to be able to take down a really good team. So that's the only team to me that looks like just completely overwhelmed and overmatched. And especially if Morant doesn't play tonight, then I mean, I know they had a good record without him, but it's the playoffs. It's different. I don't see how they'd have a chance in hell of beating Golden State without Ja.
No, I mean, as you said, Golden State's probably the deepest roster in the NBA, because they've got young guys coming off the bench who haven't played much, but we know they're talented, like Jonathan Kuminga. You've got Jordan Poole, who's just been sensational, putting up 20 points per game here in the playoffs, not to mention, of course, Clay, Steph, Draymond. Andrew Wiggins is like your fourth or fifth guy. I mean, that's a deep roster. And it just could be setting up for Golden State because they beat Denver in 5. If they can get through Memphis in 5, and again, we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but let's say they get through Memphis in 5, they get a little time to rest while Phoenix and Dallas might be going to certainly a 6 or maybe even a 7-game series. That sets up for Golden State. In the East, you've got Boston and Milwaukee playing some sort of form of football out there, and Miami and Philadelphia has been pretty physical, and Embiid's banged up and Kyle Lowry's banged up. So this could be really setting up for Golden State that they just get through the playoffs with less effort than the other teams. And quite frankly, that's been the mantra over the years. Golden State, and I'm not taking anything away from them, they won 3 championships in 5 years. They did have some luck along the way, which you need, right? You just don't go out there and destroy every team. But how many times do we see the other team's best player was injured when they were playing Golden State? And then when they got to their first finals in 2015, Kevin Love wasn't there for Golden State. And in game 1, Kyrie breaks his knee and is out for the rest of the series. I still maintain if Love and Kyrie Irving are healthy in that series, the Cavaliers win that series in 5 or 6 games. But that didn't happen. But it kind of came back to bite Golden State, of course, in 2019, when I think if they were healthy, they would have beaten Toronto. Of course, you lose.
Yeah, no, it comes back around sometimes.
It comes back around. And sometimes sometimes you get lucky. You need a little bit of that to get through this. And it seems like it's kind of setting up for Golden State, but that could change in a week. Well, all of a sudden teams get healthy and they're playing at a higher level.
And as far as the Warriors go, and they look like the best team right now. They've been playing, I think, the most dominant basketball. But I think that after this series against Memphis, because I think Golden State's going to be able to put them away, all the remaining opponents that they could potentially play are going to be way more difficult. I'm assuming Phoenix will win against Dallas. I can't say that definitively, but let's assume they do. Mm-hmm. I think that where Golden State is weak is in the paint. Defensively, they go small. They're not. Ayton would be a massive issue for them. And if they get to the finals, whoever the hell they play in the that comes out of the war that is the Eastern Conference is going to present a problem for them. They're not a physical team. All the remaining teams in the East are extremely physical. So I think this is the last series that Golden State will get to coast for. Right. Is my point.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because I mean, again, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but potentially say Golden State, Milwaukee, how the hell are they going to deal with Giannis? I know Draymond Green's a great defender, but Giannis is pretty much undefendable. The interesting part of that series is Milwaukee lets you shoot threes. I don't know if they're going to have that same mentality against Golden State with Steph and Clay and Poole and the rest of those guys. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves with the Golden State Milwaukee finals. We still got a lot of ball to play, but back to this game tonight for the Celtics. This is time to step up, and it's going to be Jason Tatum. And good, he doesn't have to go out and score 37. I mean, he's quite capable of it, but be efficient, but be engaged on the glass, setting up your teammates. And again, assists are a stat that is dependent on guys making shots. So sometimes he may have made the right plays and they just didn't knock down shots that were makeable. So we'll look at that, but he's got to be more engaged defensively, get him away from Giannis as much as you can, because that's a physical beating that you're going to take. Giannis, as you've said many times, may be the strongest guy in the league. Certainly he's the toughest guy to defend because he's all elbows and shoulders and knees.
The Williamses, Grant and Rob are taking a beating.
A pounding. I mean, Grant Williams is built like a linebacker, and he's knocking everybody down. I mean, he's again a more athletic version of Moses Malone. I think.
No, Rob Williams has gotten an elbow to the face, a knee to the balls. No, he's gotten beat up.
It's wrestling out there with Giannis. That's how he plays. I mean, again, not the most aesthetically pleasing guy in the league, but the best player in the league and a guy that I absolutely love because he just, how can you not like Giannis? I mean, the guy is he's awesome.
I'm not rooting against the Bucks. I'm not rooting against Giannis.
And even the rest of the team. I mean, they're sneaky dirty out there. You know, Portis is always looking to nail someone and
Grayson Allen
is a physical. Grayson Allen is, oh my God, he could be Bill Laimbeer's long lost son for all we know. I mean, they actually
that's the one. more so than the Smart, the call I thought should have been 3 free throws at the end of the game.
Yep.
Smart, the refs missed one. I'm not sure if you remember this. It was a fast break on the other end or a loose ball. Tatum beat the Bucks to the ball, and Allen kind of shoved him in the back. They didn't call it. Tatum flew back, and then the Bucks hit a 3.
Yep.
That's the difference in the game. You know, the Bucks won by 2 points. So that was a bad missed call too. Allen's a dirty player. Like, I don't think like Dylan Brooks, maybe I'm defending him because he's an Oregon guy. I don't think he's a dirty player. I don't think Jordan Poole's a dirty player. Had the thing with Ja Morant's knee. Grayson Allen's a dirty player. He is.
But back to that play, Tatum's going to stop blowing up at the officials and get back on defense.
Can't help himself.
They're not going to change their call at that point. They're not going to say, Jason Tatum's one of the 7 best players in the NBA. Let's bring it back down this end. The Celtics do complain a lot, and I think Udoka's trying to get this across to the players. Like, let me handle the officials. I'll plant that seed. And good coaches do that, right, in between games. Get that message out there. Maybe you get a favorable call or 2, and it's a difference in winning and losing a game. The Celtics players come across a little bit like the Italian national soccer team, where they're diving, they're writhing in pain.
Yeah, it's out of control.
It is out of control, and it's just, it gets them out of sorts. Go out and play. You're probably a slightly better team than Milwaukee. I really believe that, especially with Chris Middleton out. Go out and play that way. You don't need all those other edges because, look, you didn't really play a great game on Saturday. Giannis was, sensational, and you had a chance to win. So go out and play your game, and you can beat these guys. I think you're slightly better, but you've got to be mentally stronger than that, than constantly complaining to the officials.
Yeah. Let's look at, we talked a little bit about all the other series. Let's look at this Miami-Philadelphia series that's now tied up at 2 apiece after Philadelphia held home court with the return of the masked Joel Embiid. And, they have made this series now. Embiid looks hurt, but he's clearly, even at whatever percent he is 60, 70, is still a huge difference maker.
Oh, I mean, you can make a case that he should be MVP. I know we're going to discuss in a little bit that all the reports out from Woj that Jokic is going to win the MVP again. And he had a great year, but I would have voted for Embiid over Jokic, and I would have voted for Giannis over both, but that's a discussion we've already had. No, Embiid's a force. I mean, because he is so good and so unstoppable down low, he opens up the entire offense for the likes of James Harden or Danny Green or whoever, Tyrese Maxey. The offense opens up because of how good he is inside. And then also he can go outside and beat you from the perimeter, not to mention what he does on defense. In the first 2 games, Miami pretty much had an open lane to the basket. Well, that's not going to happen with Joel Embiid out there. And this is a great, great player. And now that he's back, we have ourselves a series. I would say the pressure is now on Miami because they were up 2-0. Probably didn't expect to see Embiid come back. He's back. Now it's even. Pressure on Miami. And Miami, I think one way you can beat them is with size. They're not a real big team because, you can make a look at Adebayo as kind of an undersized big, if that makes any sense. And, even look at a guy like Kyle Lowry, who's not playing at 100%. They're kind of banged up. We know Butler's been banged up for this series, but still going out doing an amazing job. There's going to be a war. I think you're going to see some low-scoring games here because these are teams that will bring it defensively, but you got to give credit to Joel Embiid. And look, this is what this guy can do. He can be the most dominant player in the league when totally healthy and engaged. He's right there with Giannis. Right there is probably the 2 most unstoppable guys in terms of just sheer force, right? I mean, just size, athleticism, all of that.
No, and you got to respect the hell. I mean, he's got a concussion, a broken face, torn thumb, and he's out there and playing and making a difference. He could have said, I can't go for the series like his former teammate Ben Simmons did, for the Nets. But he's out there, and that's how you get the love of your team and your city and all that. He's a gamer. He is an absolute gamer.
Especially in that city. Philadelphia is as blue collar as it gets. I mean, they like their basketball players to be hockey players, and Embiid's kind of got that feel to him. Simmons didn't, although Simmons did undergo an operation for that disc issue. So, maybe he was as hurt as he said he was. So we'll cut him a lot of slack there. I'm not one to judge players. I know you won't because you don't like them, but I'm trying to get him on the Lakers with Kyrie Irving in a 2-for-2 swap, which, people have actually talked about now. So maybe I was just ahead of everybody when I said Westbrook and Anthony Davis go from LA to Brooklyn
You don't want to
Irving,
do the
Ben
you don't
Simmons.
want to do the
Oh,
Kyrie Irving thing again, do
I
you,
want to
Seth?
see that. Why not? Without I know. I mean, who's less dependable? Is it Kyrie or Anthony Davis? Man, I really, of all that though, I want to see Westbrook back with Durant. I think that would just be comical. I mean, that might be worth the price of admission. But yeah, I mean, Embiid's another guy who, again, a big guy with a great personality. And look, when Shaq said that this guy's more talented than I was, that means something, because Shaq doesn't necessarily throw a lot of compliments around, especially to big guys. He never would compliment Dwight Howard, but he looks at Embiid and said, "Holy crap, that's a big man, 7'1", 7'2", with great footwork, with all the ability that you need." I mean, he plays somewhat like Hakeem Olajuwon, not quite as smooth and nimble as Hakeem, but then again, I don't know many big guys that were, if any. But this guy is a force, and he's changed the entire series around without necessarily putting up huge numbers. It's just he has effect on the rest of his teammates. We see Harden playing better, and that's a big,
Yeah,
big
Harden
step
had his
for
first
Philadelphia.
really good game
Yep.
yesterday. 31 points, 9 assists, 7
Yep.
rebounds. Vintage James Harden stat line there.
Yep.
Shot the ball pretty well and hit a couple of big shots late. That's what they were waiting for. I don't know that he can do this consistently anymore. But for the game yesterday, he was what put Philadelphia over the top, because they had to survive. Jimmy Butler's been fantastic in the playoffs, as he always is. He just changes. Like, you're like, oh yeah, he had a nice regular season. You know, oh, he's an all-star this year. You know, he's shooting a terrible percentage from 3, and then he goes out and he shoots 13 of 20 from the floor, 2 of 6. Like, he just did the playoffs, steps it up, as you know you would expect with star players. I mean, he's had this is his second 40-point game in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, he was great in the finals against the Lakers. He single-handedly made that a 6-game series when it probably should have been a sweep or a 5-game series, easiest for the Lakers. He's a guy who's really grown on me. I know you've always loved him as a player, and he's a guy who I think he knows his shortcomings too. He's not a great perimeter shooter, but he seems to knock down a 3 when he needs to. But the rest of his game is splendid. Great defender, outstanding passer. He'll help you on the boards. Sensational driving to the basket. You know, a guy that just leaves it all out on the court. You like to see him out there, you know, and this is an intriguing series because, again, you get a lot of real interesting personalities out there, led by Embiid and Jimmy Butler, the 2 best players from their respective teams. So we'll see what happens with this. It's been dominated by the home team as the Phoenix-Dallas series. So we'll see if Miami and Phoenix can somehow win these series. And again, they would be rewarded for having the better regular season than their opponents.
Yeah. All right, Sap, before we finish off with the MVP thing, since we're at the midway point for all of these series, just about, let's put our money where our mouth is and pick who's going to win each one, Sap. So we'll start with the one we were just talking about. Miami and Philadelphia, it's tied up 2 games apiece. Who's winning?
I think Philadelphia is going to win. I think there's less pressure on them. They got down 2-0. It looked like they were going to gag against Toronto after being up 3-0. I think right now they're playing, I wouldn't say with house money, but they're playing a lot looser and freer than they were earlier in this series. I think they're going to find a way to pull the upset because, again, Embiid is the X factor here. He's unstoppable.
All right, I'm going to say Miami. I think that Jimmy Butler will keep playing at this level, and I can't imagine Kyle Lowry, even though he's hurt, he's got to be good for a game or 2 where he does something good. I mean, he's been dreadful because he's been hurt. I'll stick with the team that has the home court advantage. I'll say Miami. It wouldn't shock me if Philadelphia won. They looked dead in the water, Sap, before Embiid came back. So, you know, good for them to make this a series. So we're going to pick differently there. What about the other game last night? Phoenix and Dallas is tied up at 2 games apiece. Dallas takes both the games in Dallas. Phoenix took both the games in Phoenix.
Isn't this a classic case of the role players playing better at home? All of a sudden, Finney Smith look like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson out there on Sunday hitting 8 threes. And Luka needed that because Luka's struggling from the floor. And Luka's not an efficient scorer. I mean, I know the comparisons to Bird, and they call him Baby Bird. His game's a little different than Larry Bird's. I know they're 2 white guys, so that's where everybody jumps to and says, well, he's Baby Bird. He's a great passer like Bird. Bird was a better rebounder. Bird was a better shooter than Luka. Luka's going to have to work on that a little bit. And
yeah, he was 1 for 10 the other night from 3.
Yeah, I mean, he's not an efficient scorer, but he could score. And obviously, we saw the 11 assists and the rebounds, and he got Chris Paul into foul territory. Look, Luka's probably, after LeBron, my favorite player in the league. I love him.
Is this Nick Wright's new guy, by the way? I know you watch
absolutely.
Yeah, Nick Wright's tweeting like crazy about him.
He calls him his giant Slovenian son.
Okay.
which is good. Which there's really no comparison between Nick
I
Wright
like
and
Luka. Now I like him
Luka.
less than Nick Wright
Oh
likes.
no, you could still like Luka. I want to see Luka show up in shape one year. I mean, he looks like he eats a steak and cheese sub with like extra mayo on it at halftime. He doesn't look the part. Like,
he's smoking at halftime.
He's smoking at halftime. Yeah, he's just kind of out there. He's at his own pace. Did you see the runner he hit yesterday where he just kind of ambled into the lane from about 12 feet and just hit it? And it was like the whole court just stopped for him. Like the other 9 players just kind of stopped and looked at him. Then he's driving to the right. He kind of looks in the corner, moves the defender to one side, and then hits a layup. He's sensational. I think he is the most skilled guy in the league in terms of everything: passing, ability to rebound. Just, in terms of pure basketball skill, he's just sensational. I want to see him get in a little better shape and be better defensively, because they really do hunt him on defense. But he's 23 years old. I mean, he's going to get better. I'm going to go with Phoenix in this. Chris Paul was god-awful in Dallas. He had 7 turnovers in game 3. He fouled out of game 4. He had more fouls than points. He had 6 fouls and 5 points. He's got to be better than that.
He's had a weird playoffs.
He will be. He's up and down. He's 37 now.
But he's had some games that you're like, holy crap, this guy might be the best player in the league.
Yeah, it was 14 of 14 from the floor. Yeah.
And then he has games like last night where we're like, oh, this guy's washed up. I can't really make sense of it.
Yeah, he has the series, the previous series against New Orleans, where he had 68 assists and 9 turnovers, which is ridiculous. No, there's times he looks like still the best point guard in the league, and then other times you're like, he looks 37. So he's the X factor there. And I want to see DeAndre Ayton get a little bit more involved. Booker's awesome. I mean, he kept them in the game on Sunday. I think Phoenix will find a way to win this in 7 games, because Dallas is playing at a high level, and that crowd carries them, and it goes to 7. But I think Phoenix is going to find a way to win. But it hasn't been as easy for them in this postseason as anticipated. They need 6 games to beat a New Orleans team that was arguably the worst team in the postseason other than San Antonio, if we're considering the play-in tournament part of the postseason. But Phoenix has not looked as good as they did during the regular season. And again, it was a long season last year. Booker ends up in the Olympics, has a very short offseason. Phoenix was all in all year, where they seem to be engaged from game 1 to game 82. That's the 64 win total. But they seem to be spent a little bit here, and their bench is going to have to help out, because, to count on a 37-year-old point guard isn't necessarily the best way to do it. But I still think he has several good games left in him. I'll say Phoenix in 7.
Okay, I'm going to say Phoenix in 6, that they win the next 2. I think the thing that happened in Dallas with the fans touching, Chris Paul's family, harassing them, I think that's going to really piss him off.
Yes.
And I think that, he's their leader. I think they're going to rally around him. They're just such a better constructed
I like
team
that.
Than
Yes.
Dallas. Dallas, I like Brunson. Finney-Smith's fine. The only guy, Dinwiddie's fine. The only guy I trust to be consistent is Luka, and I don't even trust him to shoot consistently.
Right.
I just Phoenix again. I'm surprised they're struggling so much in the postseason, but they're fully capable of winning 2 games in a row.
Yes.
Against the Dallas team that I think is okay, not very good. So I'll say Phoenix in 6, because I do think that they're pissed off that they lost this game, and they're really pissed off that the Dallas fans were getting on Chris Paul's family.
Yeah. And you look at this Dallas team, I've said this before, I don't think I think Dallas has the biggest disparity between their best and second best player, right? I mean, like,
and
even
third
Miami,
and 4th and 5th,
3rd and 4th.
Their roster stinks.
It really is.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Finney-Smith, Brunson, and Dinwiddie feel more like 4th guys, right? And then you got Luka, who is obviously a franchise player. They don't even have like a 2nd or a 3rd guy.
Well, look at Memphis. Jaren Jackson Jr. was what, like the 3rd, 4th pick, 5th pick in the draft. He's a really skilled guy. Like who on Dallas was a high pick outside of Luka?
It was supposed to be Porzingis, who they got from the Knicks, and it just never worked out with Porzingis. Yeah, then you look at Golden State, where you could look at Andrew Wiggins as the 5th best player on the Warriors, right?
Right.
That's not even a stretch. And he was the 1st overall pick and has had a nice career. He actually made the All-Star team this year, which was a surprise, maybe not warranted, but he still made it. And you look at Dallas, it's Luka and a bunch of other guys. Miami is a little bit different. They really have an ensemble cast where Butler's their best player, but then Adebayo is really close to Butler, and Kyle Lowry, when healthy, is really close to Adebayo. They have 3 guys that are kind of interchangeable in terms of talent level, not to mention a guy like Tyler Hero, who's 6th man of the year. Dallas, it's Luka and other guys. That's why I think when the MVP numbers come out, he should be fourth behind Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis. I think he'll be a strong fourth there. But again, I don't know if they'll be able to pull this upset off, but I think it can go 7.
And then the other 2 series are the ones that are playing again tonight, Sap. Memphis, Golden State, and then we'll finish up with the Celtics in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think Memphis will find a way to win one more game and go 6 because they just play so hard and fearless, and Ja will get out there and he's quite capable of doing whatever he needs to do to win. So I'll say that goes 6 games. I think they'll find a way to steal one more game, but they're not going to win the series. It's Golden State to take over.
Yeah, I think Golden State's just going to do a little gentleman's sweep here, Sap.
Yep.
I cannot fathom them losing tonight if Ja doesn't play. I just, again, I said this at the beginning. Memphis had a tremendous record without Ja in the regular season. They were really, really good with him. They were really, really good without him. It's a different animal. You're playing a team that's won multiple championships. It's and if they go up 3-1 and Ja's knee is hurt, does Memphis bother putting him in?
I wouldn't.
Game 5?
No, I wouldn't. Because if it's a serious problem, what happens if it gets worse and now you're looking at something in the offseason that he's going to have to deal with? He's a franchise. He had a wonderful year. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
so
that could be the
you're
case.
thinking Memphis steals a game, takes a game without Ja?
They could, yeah, only because they are 20-5 without Ja this year. And actually one of those 5 losses came in the season finale against the Celtics where they benched everyone. Yeah, and the Celtics played most of their guys and won the game and were able to become the 2 seed in the East, which may benefit them if this Milwaukee Celtics series goes 7. But yeah, I think they're still so well coached and tough. And you look at how there's a lot of animosity in this series. I don't think Memphis is going to back down. I mean, they lost by 30 the other night because Golden State couldn't miss. I mean, Golden State shot from the floor with good teams shoot from the free throw line. I mean, it just looked like there was a magnet on the ball. But I still think they'll find a way to win. But you're right. That's a great point, Jed. If they get blown out tonight or whatever, and it's game 5 and Ja's knee's still not right, let's not take a chance with your franchise superstar who's 23 years old or 22 years old. Let's not go there.
By the way, quickly, that the play where Jordan Poole grabbed his knee, dirty or not?
I don't think it was dirty. I mean, we look at it in slow motion and we analyze it and we look at it as often as we've seen the Zapruder film. And I guess you could say everything looks dirty. I mean, I don't think it was going there. It's just they're playing at a high speed and something happens. And again, I don't want to read people's minds. I'm not that gifted a person. So to read intent is very, very difficult. But it kind of looked like it could have been, but I'm not going to go there.
I think it was more just odd than dirty, like just the fact that his hand hit his knee. And kind of. I don't think that's what he was trying to do. No. Certainly, and I think I'm not even convinced that that's the play that hurt John Morant's knee.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it just looked more awkward than anything. But
how much time was left in the game? How much time was left in the game when that happened?
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think if it was late, what is he doing on the floor, down, whatever? I mean, but I think you might be right, Jet, because it didn't seem like it caused him to do anything, but it may have happened earlier. And again, he plays with so much explosion, right?
Right.
Ja.
I get why the Grizzlies want to make it into a thing.
Sure.
Because they're upset about Dylan Brooks and this is their mantra. It's us against the world. We're, small market team. No one believes in us, even though they have the second best record in the NBA. But this is their thing. And so I get why they want it to be a storyline. But I don't. The Brooks play was certainly dirtier, and you and I talked about that. I didn't think that was dirty either. But
you like that style of basketball anyway.
I do, and I also like Dylan Brooks because he went to Oregon.
Fellow Duck. So yeah, you've got to stick up for your guy. Yeah, you love that stuff. You'd have a team of Dylan Brooks and Draymond Green and Marcus
he's my
Smart.
favorite. He's my favorite Oregon basketball player of all time, Dylan Brooks. He was so fun to watch at Oregon. He was like a Paul Pierce. Like he hit big shots and stuff like that. And he's kind of a DB, which I love.
Oh yeah, you love those guys. Yeah, see, I like the ridiculously skilled.
Yeah.
LeBron, Kyrie, Luka. Give me the guys that like.
You don't like Kyrie? Come on.
To watch? Oh my Lord, he's as good to watch as any player I've ever seen. I told you, if
I
could show up,
he's poisoned me so much I can't even like that.
He's poisoned everybody, but I mean, to watch him, oh no, he's a pure artist on the court. He would tell you that too, which is kind of interesting. That's kind of our
Who
job.
calls himself a martyr? Who ever calls
only
himself
Kyrie.
a martyr?
Well,
Jeez.
he's running that franchise at this point. So,
Ay,
give him some credit. But
all right.
I think, again, Memphis is just such a strong-willed team. They'll find a way. But say this about the Warriors. When they get a chance to put a team away, they put them away. I mean, they don't generally fool around. They take care of business.
And they know how. They know how to close out a series.
They do.
Which is a massive thing. All right, last series, Sap. Boston, Milwaukee. What do you got?
Originally, I picked the Celtics in 7. Let me stick with that. I think they're a slightly better team. This game 4 is huge. You win this, you get home court back. It's a best of 3 with 2 of the games at TD Garden. You can kind of exhale and go, okay, we've taken some of their best shots in the first 4 games, and we're still standing. I'm going to stick with the Celtics in 7, but they had a great opportunity to steal back home court on Saturday in game 3, and they just couldn't finish it. But I think Tatum has to have a solid game. I'm not asking him to go out and score 37. He doesn't have to do that. He was outscored by 32 by Giannis in game 3, and you lost by 2. Now, that probably is not going to happen again. If that happens again, you're probably going to lose by 22. But he has to be engaged in other facets of the game, not just scoring. Get off to a good start, get him going, and I think things will fall into place. I'll stick with the Celtics in 7. This is a tough series, though, because that team is mentally right now the strongest in the NBA because, hey, they won the championship last year, and they have the best players. So they go on the court really believing they're going to win.
I originally said Celtics is 6. I'm going to switch it to Celtics in 7. Winner of the game tonight wins the series. I think.
Yeah, period. No, I think that's a yeah. I mean, if it's Milwaukee tonight, then they have 3 opportunities to win one game. I don't think the Celtics can win 3 straight. Yeah, if the Celtics can win tonight, now it's best of 3 with home court advantage, and you're the healthier team unless Middleton comes back, which I don't think is going to happen. Yeah, the winner tonight is most likely going to be the winner of the series.
I think, for the Celtics, like you said, Tatum needs to just play like he can, play his average to slightly above average. That's all they're asking. He doesn't have to go bananas. They're not, it's not like the Celtics team last year where the only game they won in the postseason was the Tatum 50-plus point game. They doesn't have to do that. So just play his game, and they have to knock down their threes, their open threes. I'm not asking them to hit crazy shots, and they have to take away the role players of Milwaukee as best as possible. Again, you're not stopping Giannis. We've said this all postseason long. We said it all regular season long. You're not stopping him. It doesn't matter. Do whatever defense you want. It doesn't matter. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. You have to accept that. You just have to throw up your hands and accept that he's going to dominate. He's too big. He's too strong. He's too athletic. He's too fast. You can't stop him. It's the same as LeBron at the height of his powers. Yeah. And Giannis isn't as good as LeBron was at that point in time. But I'm saying, you can game plan as much as you want. It doesn't matter. So throw that out the window.
They do so many things. See, that's the thing which makes them great players, right? Like, even when Giannis isn't scoring, he's going to grab 12 rebounds and 8 assists, and he's going to rim protect and come up with the biggest defensive player of the game. Just look back to the finals last year, right? I mean, that series switched because of Giannis's defense as much as anything. Then in the clinching game 6, he puts up 50 on the board on 17 of 19 from the free throw line. So that's what LeBron would do in his prime and still does, right? He'll go out and score 30 and get you double-digit rebounds and assists. That's what the great players do. That's why they're truly superstar players. That's what Tatum has to elevate to. But yeah, I think you make a great point, Jet. The winner of game 4 most likely will win this series. And it's been a kind of a weird, entertaining series, and I expect another crazy game tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Sep, let's wrap up with the announcement that Woj put out there that Nikola Jokic is expected to be announced at any point in time in the, whenever the NBA decides to do it, as the MVP. So you could take that to the bank. He's won the MVP award. We talked about that a lot, especially towards the end of the regular season, as the award race was really tightening up between 3 guys, the aforementioned Giannis, Embiid, and Jokic, who's now the winner of the award. We both thought Giannis should have won. We both think he's the best player in the planet. Do you have a problem with Jokic winning?
No. I to be honest with you, I think 4 guys deserve this award this year. Now, again, only one can get it. I think that Giannis, Embiid, Jokic, and Luka all had MVP caliber seasons. Now, Luka missed some games. He came in kind of fat and out of shape early, but once he got engaged, he played at the highest level in the league. We know what Embiid means to Philadelphia. Just look at the playoffs. They were no factor in games 1 and 2 against Miami, and they were able to win and win comfortably games 3 and 4 because of Embiid. We know what Giannis means every single game on both ends of the floor. And Jokic's numbers are like extraordinary. The only man in the history of the NBA to put up 2,000 points, 1,000 rebounds, and 500 assists in a given season. I mean, you could start playing games with numbers as much as you want. I mean, we could throw some Wilt numbers out there. You know, the only guy that scored 4,000 points and 2,000 rebounds and 400 assists or whatever the hell he did in many of his seasons. I mean, we can go put up all those numbers we want. But again, Denver was a factor all season long, and he didn't have his 2 best players. And they were still a team that won 49 games, 48
and
games.
He had a better statistical season than in his MVP season last year, his first MVP. You know, he averaged more points per game. This last year's 26.4, this year 27. He averaged 8.3 assists last year, slightly down this year, 7.9. But the big difference, he averaged 10.8 rebounds last year. He averaged 13.8 this year. So picking up the rebounds by 3 in a year is really impressive. So yeah, I have no problem with it. I probably, again, amongst those 3 guys, would have put him 3rd, but you know, it's neck and neck. The most interesting thing to see will be how the votes themselves actually played out when they released that, more so than who actually won the award.
Right. Like how close it's going to be.
It's going to be.
Yeah.
The most impressive number for me, Sap, for Jokic is he started his career in 2015, 2016. This is the games played: 80, 73, 75, 80, 73, 72, 74.
Right.
Last year, by the way, there were only 72 games.
Right. He's a guy who plays 90, 92, 93% of his team's available games. And that's something I like about Jason Tatum too. Tatum is around 94% of his games. That means something to me. That means something for the league because, you know, and I know we're going to talk about this in a future podcast. The TV contract comes up in 3 years and we're hearing like telephone numbers are going to be paid by ESPN and TNT to get the rights. Well, I think if those networks go in and say, well, we're going to give you $7.5 billion over the next 10 years. Can we figure out a way that the stars are playing in the regular season? So I give Jokic a ton of credit for that. And he gets better every year, which is pretty amazing. So yeah, he's deserving of it, but it almost seems like it's getting like the NFL where the regular season MVP is a curse. I mean, the last regular season MVP in the NFL to win the Super Bowl was Kurt Warner in 1999. I mean, you can look, my guy Aaron Rodgers is 4 NFL MVPs, and in those 4 years didn't even get to the Super Bowl.
Maybe he should coast instead of trying to win the MVP.
Yeah, no, I think he's more interested in winning the MVP. He talks about that a lot, that he has 4 and should have 2 more. And my guy's the only guy that would bring that up. But even Brady's 3 MVPs. The Patriots didn't win the Super Bowl. Manning has 5. They didn't win the Super Bowl. You have to go back all the way to 1999 for the last NFL MVP to also be the Super Bowl champion in the same year. And it's kind of getting like that with basketball. The last NBA MVP to win the championship was Steph in 2014-15. Right? You just go right down the list. It's just, you know, you win the MVP and oftentimes you're bounced in the first or second round, right? Jokic was bounced in the second round last year, the first round this year. Giannis got bounced early. 1 year that he won the MVP and then made it to the conference finals and lost another time. It's kind of weird. I mean, Harden and Westbrook won MVPs and didn't even get out of their own conference. So, you know, maybe players are like, well, you don't win the regular season MVP, but you got a better chance to win the championship. I thought 2 years ago when we got to the bubble that LeBron should have been the MVP. He lost to Giannis, and that vote wasn't even close, which I thought was kind of strange. I believe Giannis won that vote 81-19 in terms of first place votes. I thought it should have been closer than that. Kind of like I thought that Aaron Rodgers deserved the MVP this year in the NFL, but it should have been closer with Tom Brady than it was. Right. It was like a 2-1 margin. And sometimes people just follow and hear, oh, okay, he's going to be the MVP, so let me vote for him, which is idiotic.
I think that happens a lot.
It happens it happens in presidential elections. How stupid is that? Well, I like the other guy, but you know what? I'm going to vote for the guy who wins. It's not, you know, we're not at a contest where you're going to get any prize from picking the winner. We're not in Vegas where you're betting it. I mean, just vote. Yeah, it's just like, well, I guess Jokic is going to win it, so let me vote for him. And Aaron Rodgers is going to win it. Let me vote for him. And thankfully, more people did because my guy needs to win some of those personal awards because he sure as hell isn't getting back to the Super Bowl anytime soon. But
I think so. Yeah, with Jokic, Step, I think it's that is a factor in it. Obviously, his play is a factor in it, and I think I think the voters do want to or are incentivized to reward the guy who plays a lot of games.
Yeah.
Whether
No, and
that's
that's
the
true.
best way to vote on it, that's up for debate for another day. But again, 74 games for Jokic this year, 68 for Embiid, 67 for Giannis. I think that's the difference.
No,
right
that means
there.
something. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you put this forward a couple of years ago that to be eligible for MVP, first team All NBA, second team All NBA, third team All NBA, you should have to play a minimum amount of games. Figure it out in an 82 game schedule. Let's say, I don't know, 66 games. That's roughly 80% of your team's games. That should be fair enough. I mean, I don't think you have to say you got to play 75 out of 82 to be eligible for these awards.
66 is reasonable.
Yeah, a nice even number, and it's about 80% of the schedule. That's pretty good. So all three of those players, by the way, would have been eligible because, like you said, Giannis played 67. Last year, Embiid didn't play enough. He probably would have won the MVP last year, but he missed 24 games, I believe, while Jokic was playing every game.
Yeah, he played 51 last year.
Okay, so he missed 21 out of the 72. So that's a pretty big amount, although in those 51, he was damn dominant. The last player that won the MVP playing so few games, I believe, was Bill Walton in 1978. I don't know if you're on the Google machine there. I think he played 58 out of 82 games and won the MVP. He was dominant. But that was at a time when the players voted for the award, not the media. And Walton won it in 78. This was a year after he won the finals and finals MVP with Portland. Came back the next year, was dominant, got hurt in February or March, but still won the MVP. I think deservedly so. So,
let me look it up.
That's where we're at.
What year?
Yeah. Bill Walton, 1977-78. I think he played 58 games. Right around
indeed.
There.
Right on the money, Sap. 58.
I pulled that right out of my ass.
Very good.
Yeah, not bad. I can remember that. I can't remember what I ate for lunch 2 hours ago. But he won it. But that's back when the players were voting for it. So it changed, I believe, in 80-81. That now the media voted for it. I know the
players get, and LeBron specifically gets all pissed off about the voters. I would not trust the players to vote for MVP.
No. How many of them would take it seriously?
They're friends with too many of the other guys.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, back then it was probably pretty interesting because they're like, I'm definitely not voting for this guy because I can't stand him. And maybe we could see Russell Westbrook's ballot. That would be interesting because he'd probably vote for himself, number one, rather than some other guy he doesn't like.
But now we have Sap, 4 years in a row, international players won it, two in a row for Giannis, 2 in a row for Jokic now. I can't imagine.
Top four finishers are going to be foreign-born players, right? It's going to be Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, and Luka.
That's pretty awesome. I mean,
it is. And then
it's
probably
great for the sport. It really is.
And then probably Tatum and Booker will finish 5th and 6th, I would think.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just guessing. So, and that's good. I mean, again, I've said this a million times. I don't recall the league ever being as good as it is now in terms of talent. It's like every year you add superstar caliber players. I mean, we don't have to label them superstars right away, but you can see they're going that direction, whether it's Ja Morant in his draft or Luka and Trae Young in their drafts. Obviously Tatum and, Embiid back in 14 and all these great players, Giannis back in 13. They just the sport is just growing because it's such an international sport at this point. People like to romanticize about the 80s, and that was a great decade, but there weren't foreign-born players. And the league just expanded in the late 80s into the 90s. The 90s to me was the decade that people also romanticize about because Michael Jordan dominated, and that's great. But the foreign players were not a factor in the 90s, and the league just expanded by 6 teams in the previous decade. So the talent was watered down. Now, with all the foreign-born players and just the skill level, I think the league has more talent in it than it's ever had.
Oh, no doubt. And it's only going to continue to grow. If you go look at some of the draft prospects for this year, next year, the top prospect by a mile is a French kid who's 7'4", Victor Wayamba or whatever. He could shoot threes. He could, I saw a picture of him playing at like a Nike Hoop Summit against Chet Holmgren, who's gigantic, and he's towering over Chet Holmgren. Right. So, again, this is just this. There's going to be a lot of foreign-born MVPs as we continue on in the NBA.
Yeah,
this is get used to it. Luka's going to win a couple. I mean.
Oh yeah. So if he lays off the Haagen-Dazs and the steak and cheese subs in the offseason, he may be able to.
If he could just put forth a good first, quarter of the season, he would probably win MVP. He'd be the MVP this year.
I'll make an excuse for my guy is that he nearly carried his team to the gold medal in the Olympics. So it was a really short offseason, and then he came back. Probably weighing 280 because he's 6'7", 6'8". He's a moose. He's a moose. You saw him yesterday against Phoenix. He's just plowing people down. He kind of is physical in a different way than Giannis. Giannis is so explosive. But
Except
Giannis
if he
is
was
like
280. What did Zion weigh at the beginning?
325? Because Zion's a little
Jesus
shorter.
Christ.
Oh, Zion is enormous. I mean, look at the NFL players. Does Zion at his heaviest not look like an offensive tackle that weighs 325?
There should not be an NBA player who's pushing over 3 bills right now.
Unless you're 7 feet. I mean, like Shaq was obviously 350.
But Shaq was like, I'm saying, like, that was fine. Except that was later in his career, it was a problem.
Yeah,
but I mean, right now I'm looking at there shouldn't be a guy who's over 300 pounds in the NBA.
Maybe the only guy that is Embiid, but he's got to be 285. But he's also 7'2".
Right.
And he's a big man, so yeah, you're right. You should be at that level. I'm just making up Luka 280. I mean, when you're 6'7", 6'8",
I think you're a pretty good guess at it. If he's 280, then you're right. Zion must have had it by 40 pounds.
Oh, at least Zion was massive. And Luka's a kind of a different big. He's kind of got a big butt and leg. I mean, he's just kind of big, and he plays enough of a physical style. He's just, different than Giannis. But the foreign-born players are outstanding. So I love watching them. And so now I don't sound like Chris Mad Dog Russo, who keeps bringing up Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, and guys that a lot of people that listen to these things never even remotely saw play.
I think him and JJ Redick should have a podcast together.
Oh yeah, that would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? Oh my God!
They don't seem to like each other.
No, it'd be A-hole 1 versus A-hole 2. We're gonna get into that in a future podcast, but that was
Redick's
weird.
One of your new favorites.
Well, I like Redick. The only thing is he's got that Duke thing going.
Right, oh, yeah. They all saw like, no one can really like the Duke guys. Like, how much can you really like one of them?
I mean, Duke Blue Devils, DB. You get the point?
Yeah, right, and he was one of like the long tenured Duke Blue Devils. It's like Tatum and Kyrie. You're like, okay, they were there for a business trip.
Yeah, he was there forever. I'd say in the power ranking of biggest DBs that went to Duke, I would say number 1 was Christian Laettner. He's the poster boy. He was like the first one. He was the original. And then I'd go with JJ Redick with the silver medal and Grayson Allen with the bronze medal because they just stayed there forever. I felt like Grayson Allen. Yeah, guys like that. Although the Plumlees aren't quite. They were never as good as those guys.
No.
Obviously Laettner, but just and Kyrie he only played 1 year and Tatum only played 1 year. And Tatum is just a guy who complains a lot, but he's not. Quite as bad as those guys. But
Shane Battier.
A little bit, but Grant Hill was the most likable guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everybody
of all the players, except the black guys on other teams didn't like him.
No, yeah. Sorry, I shouldn't say everybody. Yeah.
They thought he was a phony, right? But we'll get into that in a future podcast about JJ and Chris Mad Dog Russo. It felt like I was watching, politics, like Fox News against MSNBC. But the foreign players are fantastic. And look, if you're a basketball fan, just get used to it because they're here to stay.
Absolutely. All right, Sap. Well, that's going to do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. I will be rooting heavily for the Celtics tonight, so my mood will be directly affected on how well they play. That is my lot in life. And we will see. We will talk later in the week about how that went and how the rest of these series are going. Any other news that comes out. Make sure you check out our social medias for updates about the show at JohnSapp25, at Jet Stryer. You can find the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sapp, or find it on YouTube at youtube.com/Jet Stryer. And we will talk to you later in the week, everybody. See ya.